Alright, here's one of our through shafts for our gearbox. I just finished cutting the keyway here. It's for a 1/4 inch key. Just give you a few little short clips as we go along here. Alright, well, we're working on the shafts for the gearbox today. Here's one that's been threaded. Haven't cut the keyway in it yet. This one's been threaded. They were both threaded. And then I've already cut the keyway here for that. And our little gears and bearings and everything fit on here just like yay. So put a key in there and they'll work. Now on these I've got the upper collars that are almost done. They're already threaded. Now on the upper ones I have to go back through, drill and tap it for a set screw, and we'll pat it so we don't screw up our threads on either of them. And on the bottom one I've got to drill the same little drill and tap to do it, but then I've also got to machine a keyway in it, so I'll probably set those up in the shaper. I've got two of them. They slide on just like oh, that's a threaded one. Take an unthreaded one, and we've got to cut the key in that. It slides on to set our other height, and then of course our bearings set in between, one here and one here. And then we've got the grease seal that goes in the bottom, and that's this seal here, and it will go up into the bottom of the bearing housing like yay, and then the seal will go in and it rides on there. So those are they're getting pretty close to being done here. All we've got to do is cut the keyway in this one, and then like I say, drill and tap both of these top and bottom for a set screw, and machine a flat on the top one, so I can use a wrench to adjust that. So that's the plan for the day. Once I get that done, we'll set them up in the gearbox. I haven't cleaned the gearbox up yet from when I bored the holes in it, but we'll disassemble it, clean it up, and then we'll mount our bottom boss. We'll drill and tap for that. Well, we're starting off with a little shaper action this morning. I'm cutting keyways in here. Now I don't know if they're necessary or not. You know, but we've got a keyway in the bottom. Once I get a keyway cut, and they're a 1/4 inch keyway, and I'm going to go approximately 1/8 of an inch, but there again, I don't want to break through the bearing seal on this side. So we'll just take it down to where it looks pretty good, and then we'll shave our key to match. Got it set up on one of my cast iron angle or my cast aluminum angle plates here, just clamped in place. And I've already got the setup, got her zeroed up. We've got about a 3/16 cutter in there, and we're going to take it down to pretty close to full depth, and then we're going to widen it out to where it accepts a 1/4 inch tool bit. I've got to run over and grab some key stock here in a bit. But anyway, that's kind of what's happening. So we've already got the setup, got it pretty well lined up, and let's just see if we can get a decent cut on this. And there we go. We're going to call that good right there. So, we pull this out of here. There we have a halfway decent keyway. Both sides there. That will go ahead, drill and tap it for our 1/4 20 on this side to lock a key in place. And this is a little bit shallow, but there again, I didn't want to get even close to my seal race there. So we're going to drill and tap it there, and I will probably go 90 degrees and do one more. There again, don't know that it's necessary, but once it's locked in place, it's never going to go, so we might as well anchor it in there. So there's the first one done. I've got one more to do, and operation will be exactly the same, settings are the same, and it should fit right in there. Once we clean that out, we'll clamp her in place and cut the other one. Well, I got both my keyways cut, but I thought while we were here, this was a good opportunity to show a couple of things that are wrong with this setup and wrong with this machine. Now, I actually have had this machine partially disassembled because I've been taking some dimensions off some parts and doing some stuff, but I wanted to cut these keyways, so I went ahead and put back together the stuff that I had off of it. Now, I've done a little bit of work to this machine and done a couple of things like the new feed screw nut and things like that, that when this machine eventually gets redone will probably get redone along with it. But anyway, I consider this machine to be in about average condition of what you find for a used machine. You know, it works okay, it's relatively good, but it's not, you know, a lot of guys will say, oh, their machine is just perfect and all that bullshit. So anyway, setup wise, if I was going to set this up differently, and there again, for right now, we're using the tooling that we had available to us. This was one of my angle plates that I cast and then machined just specifically for the shaper. I think I'd shown cutting a keyway on this with a bigger gear or a pulley. I don't remember what it was now, but anyway, that was the setup there. And then this is the internal cutter that came with the machine. This is actually a relatively good design. The original Atlas cutter was like a standard Atlas tool holder. It held a 1/2 inch boring bar, or, you know, keyway cutter bar, whatever you want to call it. And I don't have an original one. I'll have to do a reproduction or something if I don't find an original, but they can be made relatively easily to be functional. I actually like this design. It works pretty well, but there's a couple of issues with it. One of them is for this setup, it's actually a little bit too long. I will probably build another one like this that's about half the length. And you have to watch your stroke, but for cutting small internal keyways, which is what I do an awful lot of with this machine, why, that would work perfectly well. So anyway, the problem I noticed with this as I'm cutting with it this time is, for one thing, if I was going to set this up and do a lot of keyways like this on small with this length stick out, what I would do is I would probably cast me another plate, and I may do it anyway, that's got a angle on it this way and then has a plate that runs down to give it a little more support off the front of the table. But then I would drop where I wanted to cut my keyway down to the bottom. That would add a little bit of rigidity to it the way it is now. And this is a 7B, so it's got the foot underneath to support the table, but nonetheless we're quite a ways up here in the air and we're leveraging it out this way. So it would be better to lower that down to where our cutting was in this area here just above the table. Would add a little more rigidity, would take out some of that lever that is inherently built in with it sitting this far in the air. The other thing is, this shows part of the wear in the machine. This cutter does a real good job with this setup and everything, and this is designed, this bracket here is designed so that the clapper won't raise up. It's just got a stop screw against it, so it locks the clapper in the down position. So if you're doing a tight keyway, where you don't have clearance, or cutting a dovetail, something that way where you don't want it to retract, that locks it in the down position, you could go ahead and cut, especially your keyway, and cut sideways and not have to worry about your clapper coming up and fouling in your material. Now, the thing that I do notice about this, and this is wear, and there again, unless you're looking for it, you may not see it. I could tell with this long cutter sitting out here the way it was, as I was traversing it sideways a little bit or cutting to the side to widen the keyway, you can actually see this bar flex to the side. Now, it's not in the bar itself, it's in wear in the machine, it's in the clapper itself. If you look right in here, you can see the whole clapper shift side to side. And that, of course, is exaggerated with this long bar. The farther out it is, the more leverage you've got against that to work it side to side. So just something to be aware of, you know. Normally when I set these up to add a little bit of rigidity with the foot underneath on the 7B, like this has, if we look down here at the foot, clear down here at the bottom, why, of course, you want to add a little oil across here. I wasn't traversing but a little bit, but there's some lubrication underneath. But what I'll do is I'll raise my table or raise my knee to the position that I want it, lower my foot down, and then I'll drop the table down just a little bit more so we contact the, so we've got a little more contact with the foot. So anyway, just something to be aware of. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back on building this gearbox. These will now go over, these last two will go over and be drilled and tapped for a 1/4 20 set screw, both up here on the top and I think probably on 90 degrees on one side or the other. Alright, so here's our gearbox. Here is our bearing caps that go in the bottom half. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this apart. Now I haven't opened this up since I machined the bores and put the top caps on. So when we do this, and that's the wrong size. There we go. That'll be more better. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and disassemble this and clean it up a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and see if we've got our shafts fitted right. Or see if we can fit our shafts right. I still have to fit down the 1/4 inch keys that go in. But otherwise this should be ready to assemble. I still have to shave off these top portions. I did go back and where they would have interfered on one side or the other, I just put 4 socket head cap screws. They're angle head, countersunk set screws in them. I put in all 4 positions that could possibly be an issue. And that'll take care of that. Now basically these hubcaps we just want to take off. Now I've marked these, so there's no issue as where they go, and after we get the bottoms fitted, well, we'll mark them too so that we know which cap and carrier goes in what position. So then we can go ahead and screw these right back down because they're going to help with the alignment on the bottom portion. We've got 2 dowel pins, one here and one here for alignment. So we know it indexes back up the same way. And what I'm going to do is leave a little adjustment on the top so that I can preload where the bottom collars are going to sit, and then we'll go back and tighten the top. Is kind of the plan. And those will ride in there like that. Actually, let me grab a couple of little spacers to space this up. We've got precision spacers here. See if we can still see anything here. Yeah, kind of. Flip it around and hopefully that'll give you some sort of a view. Now if we do that half like that, let's go ahead and flip it up here and wipe the back halves out. Actually there's no carriers on the back halves, but let's wipe the housings down. And what's going to happen is these are just going to set in from the top. Just like that. And then of course on the bottom we've got our race that goes in first, or our carrier that's got our race in it. And then we put a bearing in. To align it. And then we're going to put one of our collars on the back side, and I'm not going to worry about lining up keyways or anything yet. And then on the bottom we've got a seal that goes on there, and I'll spin this around so you can see it here in just a minute. This one will go on this half. Carrier goes on the bottom. Our other bearing. And then our shafts in the bottom may be too long here. So this is the way the back looks. Right here, and we've got a seal. This seal will go in underneath, and it rides on that inner surface on both of them. And that I think looks pretty good. We've got seals that will go there, and then we can preload the back sides of them. Then these shafts will get cut off to whatever length is appropriate. We've still got a pulley to go on one side, I believe, I'm not sure which side. Pulley on one side that runs the belt off of the motor, and then there's a sprocket, which will be this sprocket will go on the other one. So sprocket on one, pulley on the other, and that's the way it goes. So what I'm going to do now is I let these carriers kind of self-float right in here. And what I'm going to do, since they're locked in position right there, I'm going to go ahead and drill them so they can be drilled and tapped. And we'll probably do the same thing I did on the others. We'll see if they want to move at all. We'll disassemble them and tap the first hole and then open up and then go back and get the rest of them all fitted up is the plan. So that's the bottom of the case. That's the way the carriers are going to fit. I guess we're rocking on some bolts there. So if we set those there, go ahead and let those self-align, and we can drill them right there. So I'm going to go ahead and drill and tap those, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. Well, here's our hubs installed in the bottom, and when we do final assembly, actually I still have to mark these for their position, but when we do final assembly on them, I will put washers and lock washers on, of course. The seals go down in underneath on both of those. We've got the seals for those, and that's pretty much the way it all goes together. So our shafts are too long, those will go on, our bolts come out, and the hubcaps go back on there, just like that, to cover our nuts. We've got enough threads here that we can load them. I do still have to cut my keyways for the bottoms of those shafts, and then for the gears on the side. I'll probably, while I've got it, when I go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this and clean it up. Probably while I've got it apart, I'll bolt the top half back down to the planer table and shave across those two areas so I've got nice flats. I don't know that it's really necessary, but I think I will because I can. And the next thing is this gear goes inside the box, so we have to open the bore up and weld in our hub. We'll open it up, set our hub in there, and then we'll weld it in position and get that fitted. And that's probably what I'll do tomorrow. I don't know if maybe I'll videotape that, maybe I won't. Basically, we're just going to anchor it down onto the mill table, index off the center, and then bore it to fit that, and then weld it up. So once we've got that done and cleaned up the rest of the housing, we're ready to put the gearbox together, although we still have to get it set in position and decide how long I want these shafts that are going through there, because they're going to be shortened up. I left them extra long so that we had extra material there. And that's pretty much where we're at. Once we get that done, we've got to cast up 2 aluminum angles to go across here to bolt it down to the C-channel that's going to be welded onto the bottom of the Muller, wherever we need to position this. We could take some angle iron and do it, but I think we'll probably just cast up a couple little pieces of 1/2 inch thick angle iron. They're about 10 inches long, I think, and that's what Steve Chastain shows in the book, so I think I'll just follow along just to be a little true to the way he's done it. His system seems to work, so I think I'll probably just follow suit for the most part. But anyway, once I get the gearbox done, and actually I don't even really need to worry about the internals at this point in time. I could go ahead and do the once I figure out the height of the sprocket to cut the shafts off, we could go ahead and mount the box and then pull it back off and assemble the internals to be a little bit lighter, but I don't know, we'll see one way or the other. We'll get that done, but we're getting awful close. So anyway, I'll disassemble. I'm probably not going to show a whole lot more today. I'll go ahead and edit this out and get it out to you guys. And as always, comments, suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. If you haven't hit that subscribe button and this interests you, I'd appreciate it. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch. Alright, one last little tidbit before we fire up the planer here. I haven't shown the insides of these gearboxes since we've got them pretty well situated. Now I still have to go back with a carbide burr and clean out the corners. I don't think there's even enough to where it's be any interference, but just for my own peace of mind, I will probably go back and clean those corners up a little bit where I've got some fallout. But that's what the cases look on the inside. And there's the outsides. This is the bottom half, so I don't have, other than just clean up and deburring the edges, I don't have any more work to do to this one than put the seals in. These are the dowel pins that'll line it. These two here on this one here, and then this one over here. So they were drilled and reamed to match. So they'll go back together the same way. And then this is the top half right here. You can see the bolts protrude a little bit proud coming right on through here. You can see them here. If I can get it up in the air, the bolts protrude, but there's a hubcap that goes back on the outside. So those will get covered up. But that's what they look like from the insides once they're pretty well done. There again, deburr the edges, just hit them with a file to smooth them up a little bit. We'll plane the top, and we'll be good to go. So I plan on going ahead and planing this afternoon, just these two areas on the upper section. I may show a little bit of that, I may not. We'll see what happens. But anyway, if there's a little bit of footage at the end, well, you'll know. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to watch, guys. stuff up out of the way here. I prefer to stop it down here, but then I can't get around the end of the table. The wall's in the way. So that's the extent of the machining on the gearbox housings, I believe. And there again, not worried about finish exceptionally on those. Just want a flat surface to bolt our mounting plate to. I'll take a flat disc and just blend these edges down in a little bit so it's a little bit more uniform there. And I'm going to call that good.